So I decided to do a review of the Immortal Iron Fist origin of Danny Rand, and it ended up being a defense of Danny Rand and a commentary on the whole cultural appropriation controversy. So if you're here only for that commentary, click on over to about the 3-minute 58-second mark and enjoy. If you want to listen to it all, of course, just let it play, and thank you for watching. So this is the Immortal Iron Fist, the origin of Danny Rand. And the first thing anyone who has read Iron Fist since the 1970s is going to recognize is that this origin isn't quite the origin originally given in the comics, but it's close enough for government work. Especially considering the stories told, the remakes of the original tales from the 1970s. And the second thing you may notice is that this book is a lot closer to the origin given in the Netflix series. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Everything you need to know about this story is in the title. This is how Danny Rand becomes Iron Fist. The story starts with Danny Rand and Misty Knight naked in bed together, which may confuse anyone who's familiar with Misty Knight from the Luke Cage series on the Netflix show. And they're reminiscing about the day they first met. They fought, he knocked her out, end of story. What follows is a constant series of fight scenes. An arena battle is the story of how he came to New York, how he established himself as a hero, and how he followed the same rough line of plot as every other superhero in the history of Marvel, basically. The rest of the story, how he and his family traveled to Nepal, how they got stranded in the snows of Kunlun Mountain, how his parents died, how he was rescued by the monks on the mountain, how he was trained until he was a living weapon, is interspersed among the action. And to be honest, these scene breaks sometimes really destroy the flow of the story. Now, the art style is loose and flowing, which is appropriate for a comic book that is almost 75% fist fights. But there's also an imprecise messiness about the art, which kind of pulled me from the immersion of the story. I personally feel that the artwork in a comic book should be unobtrusive, by which I mean the art should serve the story the comic is trying to tell, and not the other way around. This is a lesson that a lot of modern-day artists have yet to learn. Now, the plot is pretty basic. As I said, anyone who's already familiar with the comics from the 70s, they're going to see what's coming a mile away. What is most interesting is the dialogue and the way it is used. First, there's not much of it. Most of the story is told in second-person narrative, wherein the narrator is talking to Danny Rand directly, as if he's reminding him of everything he's been through. It's an interesting literary trick, but I'm not sure that it was the correct choice for the story. Personally, I think a first-person narrative with Danny Rand telling his own story would have been worse. However, as Batman made that style horribly cliché, if they couldn't use third person, second would have to do. The book ends with a couple of classic covers from Iron Fist number 15 and 16. As noted above, they're from the 70s. Followed by a 4-page biography of the character that looks like it was actually lifted verbatim from the handbook of the Marvel Universe. This will, no doubt, it will be useful for readers who are only now just meeting the character. And let's face it, outside of the world of comic books, that's a lot of people. Although he has been on the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon. Now that the review is out of the way, I'd like to talk for a minute about the complaints that have been everywhere lately regarding the Netflix series, the comic books, and cultural appropriation. Now, comic book writer Keith Chow equated the casting of English actor Finn Jones, most famous for playing Sir Loras Tyrell in A Game of Thrones, with the casting of Mickey Rooney as the horribly racist Mr. Yanoshi in Breakfast at Tiffany's, but with uppercuts. And American Danny Rand can still be all things the comic, the son of a wealthy businessman on an expedition in China. By the way, Keith, it's Nepal, not China. A student of Lee Kung, a lover of Misty Knight, a friend to Luke Cage. Danny being white is not essential to any of this. In fact, his whiteness is the most problematic thing about the character, Keith goes on to say. The parts of the classic Iron Fist story I have the most problem with, it's Orientalism and cultural appropriation. And it all can be alleviated if an American Asian actor is playing Danny. Now, here's the thing that Keith and his racist outlook on life has not paid attention to. The fact that none of this says that anybody has to be any race, therefore white is not a problem either. And that is why anybody who makes this argument, that's where they lose me every single time. Simply put, cultural appropriation is supposedly the use of an aspect from someone else's culture, clothing, music, dress, even hairstyles, without permission of that culture. For the record, it's fucking nonsense. You know what happens when two cultures meet? You know what has happened every single time two cultures have met? They've cross-pollinated. They shared culture. They appropriated things from those other cultures. Cultural appropriation is how rock and roll got invented. It's why we eat with forks instead of with just with spoons and knives. It's why baseball is popular in countries as diverse as Japan and Cuba and Liberia. It's why you can find people wearing blue jeans on every single continent on Earth. And it's also why the English language includes words from virtually every single language on the planet. Permission? From whom? Who the hell are we supposed to talk to if we, as music lovers, just so happen to enjoy jazz music and want to listen to some Fats Waller? Who owns black culture? Who should a white man go to in order to ask permission to enjoy jazz or rap? A lot of black people like to hang out in bars and celebrate St. Patrick's Day with a group of friends and a bottle of beer or two. Who should they speak to get permission for that? I'm not saying that it's wrong to have pride in one's culture, or that one's culture shouldn't be special and respected. But who the hell am I to say that someone else can't participate in my culture just because they're not originally from my culture? Who is anyone to say about that? The issue is not participating in a culture that isn't your own. The problem comes when such participation is mocking and disrespectful, like blackface in a minstrel show. A white man wearing dreadlocks is not cultural appropriation, and neither is a white English actor being cast as Danny Rand in Iron Fist. Because Iron Fist has always respected the Asian culture it is based on. It has always contained minority characters that were fully rounded characters of their own, not stereotypes and not caricatures. Even in the bad old chop socky days of American-made kung fu films of the 1970s, Iron Fist never disrespected Asian culture. People who are constantly complaining about cultural appropriation are not fighting for racial equality. They are just encouraging separation and hatred. Cultural appropriation, whether you are offended by it or not, is absolutely nothing when compared to the real gaping problems in our society. I, for one, am tired of people hopping on a bandwagon, resorting to Twitter rants just to say how offended they are about appropriation just because hashtag appropriation is trending. Real racism is more than that. It's more than just a hashtag. It's a very real problem. And people need to get over the small problems and work on the big stuff. This new group of SJWs tend to turn small stuff into big stuff, and it makes us numb to the argument. It makes us roll our eyes when anybody brings up something about race, even if it's real. We automatically put up a shield because we've heard the bullshit so much, it's hard to tell what is real and what is false. And I think that's wrong. I think that's the worst crime of all. But I digress, and I am at this point spinning my wheels. This is all I have to say on the subject, and I thank you very much for watching and listening. If you made it this far, especially hearing me rant for 10 minutes, I appreciate that. If you like this video, please let me know in the comments below. Also, if you don't like the video, if you think I'm full of shit, tell me why. Don't just dislike the video like a coward and just run away. Tell me why you didn't like it. Let me know in the comments below what you think. And if you like videos like this, please click like, click share, click subscribe to see more. And as always, Most importantly, thank you very much for watching.